So adults fail at learning new languages at like a really staggering rate. I mean, it's nearly 90%.
Yeah, it's a massive failure rate.
Yeah.
Completely disproportionate to the effort we put in.
Right, because we buy all the expensive software, we download those gamified owl apps, we swear that this is the year we're finally going to master French or Japanese.
And then, 3 weeks later, you're just swiping the notifications away.
Exactly. You just ignore the little sad owl and quit.
Yeah.
Because we view language as this massive academic subject that we have to master rather than just a functional survival mechanism.
Well, yeah, and that's the trap, right? But what if a single 10-word book title actually held the exact psychological formula to bypass that 90% failure rate?
Which is such a wild proposition, but it's exactly what we were unpacking today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
It's an incredibly enticing proposition, especially when you think about how much of our modern economy relies on, continuous rapid upskilling.
Yeah, we're forced to be lifelong learners now. You listening to this, you definitely know that feeling of needing to constantly upgrade your brain.
But our neurobiology actively resists taking on those massive new cognitive loads once we hit adulthood. So finding a bypass isn't just about convenience.
It's basically cognitive survival.
Yeah, exactly. It really is.
Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are skipping the 1,000-page textbooks this time.
Yeah, we're zooming way, way in.
Right, we're taking an incredibly microscopic, highly concentrated source and putting it under a massive analytical lens.
Just a title and a subtitle.
Literally just a title. It's called 30 Days to Fluent English, a beginner's guide.
And the accompanying tagline, which is, Learn Spoken English in 30 Days, Complete Beginner Guide.
That's the whole source material, just those few words. Because we know you don't have time for empty promises, but you also want to learn efficiently.
Right, so we're going to deconstruct the exact behavioral psychology, the linguistics, and the cultural implications packed into just those few syllables.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because a title like this, it serves as almost a perfect cultural artifact, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It sits right at the intersection of cognitive psychology, consumer behavior, and, educational theory.
So the creators had to make some pretty ruthless calculations about human motivation to write this.
Oh, every single word they chose reveals exactly what we as a society value right now, especially when it comes to acquiring new skills.
Well, let's pull the pin on the most explosive claim first, which is the time frame.
The 30 days.
Yeah, the source explicitly anchors its entire promise to that very specific window, 30 days.
Which is so deliberate.
Right, because they could have said learn English quickly, or, I don't know, English in a year, but they chose 30 days.
Yeah, it's not arbitrary at all.
To me, it feels entirely calculated to manipulate our perception of friction.
It is entirely calculated, hinges heavily on the behavioral science of friction and habit loops.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, from a neurological standpoint, the brain evaluates any new task through a sort of cost-benefit analysis, and that's deeply tied to energy conservation.
So the brain is just inherently lazy.
Well, efficient. It's trying to save energy.
Yeah.
So if an educator tells you that learning a new language is a 5-year journey of, grueling daily syntax drills.
Oh, yeah, sounds awful.
Right. The brain immediately visualizes this insurmountable mountain. The cognitive friction is so high that the amygdala practically flags it as a threat.
A threat to your energy reserve.
Exactly. So most people won't even take the first step. They just shut down.
Because 5 years feels like a prison sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, I can barely conceptualize my schedule for next month.
Yeah, nobody can.
So when I see a 5-year commitment, my immediate internal response is just, I literally do not have the bandwidth for that. And the book goes right back on the shelf.
But conversely, if the claim was, say, learn English in 3 days.
Oh, I would just assume it's a scam.
Exactly. The brain's skepticism overrides the motivation. The prefrontal cortex, which handles our logical evaluation, just rejects it.
Because it defies everything we know about how memory works.
Right. It defies our baseline understanding of neuroplasticity. But 30 days.
Yeah.
30 days occupies this fascinating psychological Goldilocks zone.
The Goldilocks zone. Because it's roughly 1 month.
Yes.
It feels substantial enough to imply that, structural changes in your brain can actually happen, but it's finite. It's a bounded container.
You can see the finish line from the starting line.
Exactly. I can conceptualize 1 month.
And it perfectly maps onto the architecture of habit formation, too.
Oh, right, like that myth that it takes 21 days to form a habit.
Yeah, which is a massive oversimplification of Maxwell Maltz's old plastic surgery observations.
Oh, really? That's where that comes from.
Yeah, but the core principle still holds true for a 30-day window. It provides enough time to move a behavior from being a high-friction, conscious effort,
Where you have to use a ton of executive function.
right, to a lower-friction, semi-automatic routine that's managed by the basal ganglia.
Okay, but I look at a claim like 30 days to fluent English,
Mhm.
and my mind immediately jumps to, like, those high-intensity fitness boot camps.
Oh,
Like the Couch to 5K programs or those 30-day ab challenges. But language isn't a muscle you can just fatigue into growing.
Yeah, it's not a muscle at all.
It's this infinitely complex neurological web of irregular verbs and cultural idioms and phonetics.
It is.
So can something with that level of complexity really be hacked in a month? Or is this timeline just setting up catastrophic false hope?
That's a perfect question. You are identifying the central tension in modern adult education right there.
The tension between deep learning and rapid acquisition.
Exactly. So to address the mechanics of it,
Yeah.
yes, the timeline is absolutely a psychological trick.
I knew it.
But, and this is crucial, it is a structurally necessary trick. It's designed to overcome the initial affective filter.
The affective filter. Wait, meaning like the emotional barrier to learning?
Yes, exactly. Stephen Krashen formulated the affective filter hypothesis.
Okay.
He used it to explain how negative emotions, so anxiety, boredom, fear of failure, literally block comprehensible input from reaching the language acquisition center of the brain.
Whoa. So being stressed actually physically stops you from learning the language.
It acts as a literal barrier. And when an adult tries to learn a new language, their affective filter is incredibly high.
Because we're terrified of sounding stupid.
Completely terrified. So the 30-day promise artificially lowers that filter. It bounds the anxiety.
Oh, I see. It tells the brain, hey, you only have to tolerate this intense discomfort for a few weeks.
Exactly. So the educator isn't actually trying to produce a poet in 30 days.
They're just trying to trick the learner into not quitting.
Right. They just need you to survive that brutal initial phase where literally nothing makes sense.
So the primary goal of those first 30 days isn't linguistic mastery at all.
No, it's behavioral momentum.
Behavioral momentum. That makes so much sense.
By day 30, the learner won't be reading Dostoevsky in the target language, but they will have experienced these microdoses of dopamine.
From the small, successful study session.
Exactly. They build the scaffolding of a habit. The timeline provides genuine, actionable hope that they can simply tolerate the process.
It's the cognitive equivalent of training wheels.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, you aren't riding in the peloton at the Tour de France, but you are experiencing the sensation of forward motion, and you aren't falling over.
And once you have that momentum, the friction to keep going on day 31 is drastically lower than the friction to start on day 1.
Because you've already proven to yourself that you can do it.
And this strategy also leverages the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect, was that?
It's our psychological tendency to remember and want to complete interrupted or ongoing tasks way better than completed ones.
Oh, like when you leave a puzzle half finished on the table. You just have to go back to it.
Exactly. So once the 30 days are up, the learner has invested enough effort that walking away feels like a sunk cost.
The psychological hook has done its job.
Perfectly.
But, okay, that brings us to a massive linguistic intersection in our source material.
Right.
Because if the 30-day time frame is just the hook that gets you in the door, we really need to examine what exactly is being sold on the other side of that door.
We do. And it's fascinating.
Because the source features this profound semantic pivot.
Yeah, it really does.
The big, bold main title promises fluent English.
Yeah.
But then the subtitle immediately restricts that parameter. It promises to teach spoken English.
Yeah. And that shift from fluent to spoken, that is the entire mechanism by which this 30-day promise avoids becoming an outright lie.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, because fluent and spoken represent two wildly different cognitive loads.
I mean, when I hear the word fluent, I imagine absolute, unhindered automaticity.
Right, like total mastery.
Yeah, like I'm debating philosophy, or I'm picking up on subtle sarcasm. I'm reading a dense financial report without translating a single word in my head.
You are just existing within the language.
Exactly. But spoken English feels entirely different. It feels highly transactional.
Because it is. Linguistically, what you're describing as fluency aligns with the higher tiers of the CEFR,
The CEFR.
the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It's how we grade proficiency.
Got it.
So what you described, that's C1 or C2 level mastery. And that requires tens of thousands of hours of immersion to achieve true CALP.
CALP.
Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency.
Okay, so that's the debating philosophy level.
Exactly. True fluency means the neural pathways are so well insulated with myelin that the retrieval of vocabulary and the application of complex grammar, it just happens instantaneously.
Which is biologically impossible to build from scratch in a single month.
Completely impossible.
So by pivoting to spoken English in the subtitle, the guide is fundamentally altering the finish line. But they're letting the learner keep that prestigious label of fluency in their head.
Exactly. It's targeting BICS instead.
BICS. What does that stand for?
Basic interpersonal communicative skills.
Oh, okay.
Spoken conversational language is heavily reliant on context, right? And nonverbal cues. And highly restricted domains of interaction.
Because a traveler doesn't need to debate macroeconomics in a cafe, they just need to find the train station.
Exactly. The cognitive load of BICS is just a tiny fraction of the cognitive load of CALP.
But wait, doesn't the learner eventually realize they've been shortchanged?
You would think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I buy a guide for fluency and 30 days later I can only ask for directions to the bathroom, I'm going to feel completely cheated.
But the irony is that modern learners rarely feel cheated by this.
Really? Why not?
Because the pivot perfectly aligns with their actual unarticulated pain points.
Unarticulated pain points.
Well, a learner might idealize the concept of reading Shakespeare in the original text, sure, but the immediate stressor that pushed them to actually purchase a quick start guide
Is probably an upcoming trip.
Exactly. An impending business trip to London, maybe, where they are just terrified of looking incompetent at a restaurant.
Ah. So they desire the social utility of the language far more than the academic depth.
Right. They want the illusion of fluency for a very specific 5-minute window of time.
Just long enough to order a coffee and not look like an idiot.
And that illusion is mathematically achievable.
Mathematically. How so?
It relies heavily on Zipf's law.
Zipf's law. I'm not familiar with that one.
It's fascinating. It states that given some corpus of natural language, the frequency of any word is inversely proportional to its rank in the frequency table.
Okay, my brain just glazed over a little bit. In practical terms, what does that mean?
Basically, a tiny, tiny percentage of the vocabulary makes up the vast majority of spoken language.
Oh.
Oh.
So out of the hundreds of thousands of words in the English dictionary, you only need a microscopic fraction of them to navigate like 90% of daily life.
Precisely. If you master the top 300 high-frequency words and just a handful of versatile syntactic structures.
Like I need, or where is, or can I have.
Exactly. With just those, you can navigate almost any transactional encounter. The 30-day guide ruthlessly discards the entire bottom 99% of the language.
Wow. So it relies entirely on pattern recognition rather than grammatical synthesis.
Exactly.
Instead of teaching a learner all the intricate rules of like past perfect progressive verbs, the guide just hands them a script.
It employs something called lexical chunking.
Lexical chunking.
Yes. The brain is remarkably efficient at storing multi-word phrases as single, unbroken units of meaning. We call those lexemes.
Wait, so instead of memorizing individual words, you memorize the whole phrase as one thing.
Exactly. Think about when a native speaker says, "How's it going?" They aren't accessing 3 separate dictionary definitions for how, is, and going, and then applying a grammar rule to stick them together.
No, they're just retrieving a single chunk of data that means greeting.
Precisely.
So the guide bypasses the traditional classroom method, where they teach you the alphabet, then the vocabulary, then the grammar rules.
It skips all of that.
It just hands the learner fully formed lexical chunks.
Yes.
You don't need to know why, where is the bathroom is structured that way.
Nope.
You just need to know that making those exact phonetic sounds in that exact order unlocks the door to the toilet.
Exactly. And the computational efficiency of storing those chunks versus generating language via syntax rules. That is what allows a beginner to sound fluent incredibly quickly.
Because the person behind the hotel desk hears a perfectly pronounced chunk of language, and they just assume deeper fluency.
Right. And the learner gets the immediate dopamine hit of successful communication.
So the promise of the book is fulfilled, functionally, even if not academically. Man, that is brilliant. But that brings a critical concept into focus for me.
What's that?
The entire strategy of lexical chunking and using Zipf's law and restricting the domain of the language.
Yeah.
It only works if we assume something very specific about the person reading the book.
Ah, yes.
The source explicitly targets the complete beginner.
And that complete beginner paradigm is perhaps the most psychologically complex element of this entire discussion.
Why is that?
Because an adult absolute beginner is navigating a really unique neurological deficit.
A deficit. Because we often hear that trope that children are language sponges, but adults have to really grind through it.
Right.
Children just have this neuroplasticity that allows them to passively absorb language through exposure alone.
Yes, you're referring to the critical period hypothesis.
Okay, what does that say?
It was originally popularized by Eric Lenneberg. It suggests there is a biological window, usually closing around puberty, during which language acquisition occurs naturally and effortlessly.
And after puberty, the window just slams shut.
Well, the mechanism changes. Children's brains are actively pruning synapses. They are deciding which phonetic sounds are necessary for survival and which can be discarded.
So they're physically wiring their brains for the language around them.
Exactly. Patricia Kuhl does amazing research on this. She shows that infants are essentially citizens of the world. They are capable of distinguishing all human phones.
Any sound from any language?
Right. But by their first birthday, they become culture-bound listeners.
Whoa, just 1 year.
Yes. They lose the ability to hear sounds that aren't in their native environment.
So as adults, we've already pruned away the ability to easily hear or reproduce sounds that don't exist in our native tongue.
Yes. Our brains are essentially rigid in that regard.
So if you take an adult complete beginner and you just drop them into a fully immersive native environment like, say, a bustling market in Tokyo, they don't just passively absorb the Japanese.
Absolutely not. The affective filter spikes immediately, and they experience severe cognitive overload.
It must feel like trying to drink from a fire hose while someone is screaming at you in radio static.
That's a very accurate description of how the brain processes it.
Because the adult brain physically cannot parse the phonemes. It can't even tell where one word ends and the next begins.
Right. It literally registers the spoken language as ambient, stressful noise.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Cognitive load theory, which was developed by John Sweller, divides mental effort into two types: intrinsic load and extraneous load.
Okay, what's the difference?
Intrinsic load is the inherent difficulty of the task. Extraneous load is the way the information is presented. For an adult beginner, the intrinsic load of a new language is already at maximum capacity. Just processing the sounds takes everything they have.
So if you don't aggressively manage the extraneous load, how the material is presented, learning just halts completely.
Yes, it crashes the system.
Which means a complete beginner guide cannot just be a smaller, condensed version of a comprehensive textbook.
No, it would be useless.
It has to act as a frequency filter. It has to artificially mute the radio static of the real world and present only the clearest, most isolated signals.
It requires extreme pedagogical curation. The author must strip away all nuance, all exceptions to the rules, all the low-frequency vocabulary.
They have to present a highly sanitized, artificially linear version of the language.
Exactly.
But wait, there's a profound danger in that level of curation, isn't there?
How do you mean?
Well, if you're just memorizing a script for the coffee shop, your success relies entirely on whoever wrote that script.
That's true.
Because if you have no baseline, if you truly are a complete beginner, you have absolutely no defense mechanism against bad material.
Oh, the vulnerability of the adult beginner is absolute.
Yeah, you're totally at their mercy.
They suffer from the Dunning-Kruger effect in its absolute purest form. They do not know enough to know what they don't know.
Right.
They have zero capacity to evaluate the quality or the accuracy or the cultural appropriateness of the chunks they're memorizing.
You are basically handing your neuroplasticity over to a stranger.
Yes. The author of the guide becomes this godlike curator of your linguistic reality.
Which is terrifying. If they teach you a greeting that is actually highly informal, or maybe it's some geographically isolated slang,
You won't know any better.
you will confidently walk into a corporate boardroom and use it, completely blind to the social damage you're causing.
Exactly. The book defines the boundaries of the language for the learner.
And when that curation is subjected to a 30-day compression constraint, the author has to make brutal compromises.
For every single word they include, thousands are excluded.
And the learner implicitly trusts that the 300 words chosen for them are the definitive, most optimal tools for survival.
It's an incredible transfer of power.
It really is. The phrase complete beginner guide isn't just like a marketing demographic to capture a wide audience.
No.
It's actually a declaration of total authority over the learner's initial cognitive framework.
Which forces us to zoom out, really, and look at the broader cultural implications of all this.
Yeah, let's look at the meta-narrative. Because if we synthesize this entire premise,
The 30-day habit loop.
right, the functional bait and switch from fluency to spoken utility, and the aggressive curation required for absolute beginners.
This single text really acts as a flawless mirror for modern skill acquisition.
It reflects a society that is just buckling under the pressure of time scarcity.
Absolutely.
I mean, we live in a gig economy now. It's driven by rapid technological shifts. The half-life of a learned skill is shorter than it's ever been.
You're constantly told you need to pivot.
Pivot, upskill, adapt, just to maintain our economic baseline.
And because of that, we demand extreme efficiency. We literally cannot afford the luxury of a 5-year mastery process.
So we've undergone this massive cultural shift regarding how we value education.
Historically, the process of learning a language was intrinsically valued,
It was like a philosophical endeavor.
Yeah, a way to expand the mind, engage with foreign literature, build character.
But today, knowledge has been deeply commodified.
We value the outcome almost exclusively.
The language is no longer an art form to be studied. It's a tool to be downloaded into the brain with maximum speed and minimum friction.
We want the matrix download.
Exactly. I know Kung Fu, just plug it in.
Right.
But by constantly seeking the bypass, by relying entirely on lexical chunks and 30-day hacks, are we creating a culture of cognitive shallowness?
That is the fear.
If everyone is just skimming the BICS level, that conversational level, a dozen different skills, we lose the profound neurological benefits that only come from deep, sustained, frustrating struggle.
Because true mastery requires the plateau.
It requires sitting in the agonizing discomfort of not understanding, which is precisely what the 30-day guide is designed to help you avoid.
The risk of a broad, shallow pool of skills is very real. However, the counter-argument is that in an environment of extreme information overload, these high-efficiency guides serve as critical ignition mechanisms.
The ignition mechanism.
A 30-day hack might lack academic depth, sure, but it is a powerful antidote to paralysis.
Oh, I see. It breaks the inertia.
It shatters the inertia. If the only socially acceptable way to learn a language was the grueling 5-year path to C2 fluency,
Nobody would do it.
the vast majority of the population would simply remain monolingual. The cognitive friction would be globally prohibitive.
So a 30-day guide actually democratizes the initial entry point.
Yes. Think about it. Someone uses the guide, they memorize their chunks, they travel to Tokyo,
They successfully order a coffee in Japanese.
and the local barista smiles at them.
Yeah.
That tiny engineered interaction produces a massive emotional and chemical reward in the brain.
And that reward alters their identity.
Exactly. They stop seeing themselves as someone who can't learn languages, and they start seeing themselves as a communicator.
The language stops being an abstract puzzle and becomes a tangible bridge to another human being.
The 30-day guide, despite all its compromises, facilitated a genuine human connection that otherwise would not have happened.
And once that connection is made, the learner might actually willingly, joyfully subject themselves to the 5-year journey of true mastery.
The hack was just the Trojan horse to get them to fall in love with the process.
That is such an optimistic way to look at it. But let's extrapolate this into the near future.
Okay.
Because the landscape of transactional communication is evolving way faster than our neuroplasticity.
Oh, definitely.
We're entering an era of seamless, real-time AI translation.
Which is a technological disruption that fundamentally threatens the entire premise of the 30-day language guide.
Exactly. I can already pull out my phone, speak into it in English, and it outputs idiomatic, perfectly pronounced Mandarin in milliseconds.
It's incredible.
And soon, that will just be an earpiece. The latency will be zero. You'll just hear it naturally.
Right.
If the only goal of a 30-day guide is functional, Spoken Survival BICS technology is about to reduce the cognitive load of that survival to absolute zero.
And if the friction of turning on a translation app is lower than the friction of 30 days of rote memorization,
Human behavior dictates that everyone will choose the app.
the vast majority will. The utilitarian motivation for language learning will just evaporate.
So does the beginner's guide go extinct? Or does it just mutate?
It will have to mutate.
Maybe instead of 30 days to fluent English, the bestseller of 2030 is like 30 minutes to calibrating your AI translator.
I wouldn't be surprised. The utilitarian guides will disappear, but language learning itself won't.
It won't.
No, the motivation will simply have to evolve. If we no longer need to learn languages to buy train tickets or close business deals,
Then why learn them?
learning a language becomes an entirely voluntary pursuit of cognitive enhancement and deep empathy.
Oh, wow. It shifts from being a professional necessity to a dedicated craft.
Exactly.
Like how the invention of the combustion engine didn't eradicate horses.
That's a perfect analogy.
It just transformed horseback riding from a grueling daily necessity into an elite, passionate hobby.
The educators of the future won't be able to sell the illusion of rapid fluency. They will have to sell the profound, slow joy of rewiring your brain.
Processing the world through a completely different cultural architecture.
Ironically, the outsourcing of basic utility to AI might actually force a cultural renaissance of appreciating deep, slow mastery.
That is a staggering trajectory.
It's fascinating to think about.
I mean, we started this deep dive looking at a 10-word title for a beginner's language book.
And a subtitle.
Right. And we've navigated through the neuroscience of habit formation, the linguistic shortcuts of lexical chunking,
The vulnerability of the adult brain.
and finally arrived at the future of human cognition in the age of AI.
It just proves that when you look closely enough at the marketing artifacts of any era, they reveal the hidden mechanics of how that society operates under pressure.
It absolutely does. So for you, our listener, navigating this relentless landscape of life hacks, accelerated courses, and promises of instant mastery.
Your desire to learn efficiently isn't a character flaw.
No, not at all. It's a required adaptation to the modern world. But understanding the exact mechanics of how these educational promises are engineered allows you to take back control of your own cognitive load.
Because when you understand why the time frame is restricted,
And how the definition of the goal has been altered.
and the immense trust you are placing in the curator of the information, you elevate yourself from a passive consumer to an active strategist.
You get to consciously decide, do I just need the 30-day frequency filter to survive this specific situation?
Or is this a domain where I am willing to embrace the friction?
Endure the radio static and pursue the deed beautiful plateau of true mastery.
Both are valid choices, so long as the choice is made consciously.
As we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. A question to test these mechanics in your own life.
Consider your current priorities. If you were forced to dedicate exactly 30 days to a completely new, terrifyingly unfamiliar skill, not with the expectation of becoming a master, but solely to conquer the initial effective filter and prove you can survive the beginner phase, what would you choose to learn?
And how would radically downgrading your definition of fluency from absolute perfection to mere functional survival change your willingness to start tomorrow?
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
Sometimes the only way to eventually map the whole world is to permit yourself to just focus on a single, messy street corner for 30 days. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.